I was the one that would always go to these other companies and say, hey, we need to do like a vampire game and so on and so forth, which funny kind of led me to this company that I held in high regard called Interplay. Started speaking with a bunch of people from Interplay. One dude, his name was Rusty, Bucket. He and I became good friends. The guy who did their business dev, his name was Phil Adam, and the funny part about Phil is he says, well, we're working on this new RPG. It might be good, and we need a system for it. And so I'm talking to him about it, and he says, I think we're looking at using GURPS. And then I was like, I hate GURPS.
What's GURPS? What's GURPS?
It stands for Generic Universal Role Playing System.
Okay.
And it's a set of rules, but it wasn't really a setting. And I was like, you don't license rules in a game. Usually the rules are stuff you want to hide and give people the experience themselves. And so we started going back and forth. And they says, no, we're going to use GURPS. And I'm like, all right, fine. But good people. Let's stay friends, right? So they actually ended up using GURPS for a little while at Interplay, and then developed their own system that they ended up calling Special. And so the game that they were working on was Fallout.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So finally, after talking to mad companies and stuff like that, and them going, well, I don't know if we're ready to do that, but I always got job offers. They were like, you know a lot about games. You should come over here. You should come here. You should come here. And eventually, like, my heart wasn't in pen and paper anymore. And so when Game Tech came along, they just made me an offer I couldn't refuse.
Right. No, that's awesome. You worked on Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Oh man, you worked on a lot of big games that were big back in the day. That's awesome.
Let me tell you,
but you were only there for a year and 4 months. What happened? What did you get enticed by something else, or was it not what you thought it was going to be? You don't have to go into crazy details because, like myself, we know a lot of people in the industry, and this is not about like undermining or saying anything.
No, of course not. So, Game Tech was a whirlwind. I mean, the place was crazy. But the funny part is that a lot of people that I met at Game Tech are still in business and still doing really well.
You mean like Game Tech themselves are still around?
No. I mean the people that I met inside of Game Tech have been in this business for as long as I have, and doing quite well. I mean, so when I got to Game Tech, I remember this. They were like, okay, there's this new developer. We're gonna send you out to see them. They're in Pennsylvania, and just help them out, right? And then I'm like, okay. So I fly out to Pennsylvania, to Latrobe, Pennsylvania, and when I'm in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, and it's like this town that time forgot or whatever.
Like Radiator Springs, right?
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? What was it? It was Ryan Brandt and Mark Cerament, and the small developer was a company called Take-Two Interactive, right?
Wow.
And so I was their first external producer.
And these companies were in their fledgling, like they were just starting out.
Yeah, this is like 30 years ago. You know what I'm saying? And so so being there for Take-Two's sort of genesis, and so working with Capcom, then doing Street Fighter on the PC, realizing that, and this is gonna date me too, but like you couldn't have a 6-button controller on a PC when I made Street Fighter, because there were parallel ports that you would have to use to do the joysticks. And the problem with parallel port is that it could do only one instruction at the same time through the pipeline. So you couldn't technically do a Dragon Punch,
right?
Because it's a combination of two inputs at the same time. And so we actually had to build a custom 6-button controller for a PC back then. So, working working through that, eventually doing things like when the PlayStation first came out, for example, um, leaving Game Tech, then eventually going to Acclaim, for example, still working with Take Two, and they wanted to do a fighting game with Dungeons and Dragons characters, right? And I was like, all right, I could help out with that, and it was the first demo disc on a PlayStation ever was Iron and Blood that I did. So paving ways there. So awesome. So that's like this recurring theme like throughout my career. It's like being the first person to do this or do that.
A pioneer.
Yeah, and so like and I think out of Game Tech though, there was a I had an AP at the time who was a really bright dude, and his name was Vince. And so Vince was there in the producer pool, Larry Pacey, just a lot of talented guys. Now Vince is, like most people know Vince because he created Call of Duty.
Oh, wow.
Like I just know Vince because he was my boy back in the day working together, so a lot of seeds that, like the head of like third party relations was my boy at Game Tech, so like so many people like, like the head of, now I'm forgetting, I think it's Paradox Entertainment was my boss, and now he's working on a vampire game, White Wolf vampire game. We were all at Game Tech. So, I mean, if there's any bit of advice I could give, like, fledgling like people is don't burn your bridges. You never know like who you're going to run into again. And think of the people that you are either in school with or at the same job. It's almost like your graduating class, right? Because if they're good, they're going to be around. And just keep good terms with people, right? Because you never know if they're going to be in a position to help you out. And so that's always been amazing for me to be in a business so long, is like seeing other people like and where their career takes them. And what I've learned is like never to say no or that can't happen. And one of my favorite sayings is all great truths begin as blasphemy. Right? And no matter how much I know, I never want to tell people no as much as I go, well, my experience says that's doubtful, but please do go ahead, because otherwise you're never going to get anywhere. You're never going to do anything that's really fun. You're never going to do anything that's really cool if you just kind of keep doing what everybody's doing. Right? Be bold, man, because you just might make it. And if you don't, fail spectacularly, right? Because I think I've learned more from my failures than I have from my successes, because I think your successes embolden you to this is the only way to do it, or I'm right, and all this other kinds of stuff, right? But when you take that ass whooping, like when you take that L on a game that is not good or a concept that is not good, what it does is it allows you to go, yeah, I'm not going to go left this time, because left is where that ass whooping is, right? So I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to do something different. And when you work with people enough, like the saying I say is like let's dedicate ourselves to brand new mistakes, right? Let's not do the old ones no more. That doesn't make sense. So yeah, so when you step through just all the places I've been, having those successes, like being in a room one time when Sam Hauser, like, is sitting down and he's got this top down game, and he's, and he says, well, I'm not going to do a British accent, but he's like, but he's like, okay, so basically the gameplay is like, you're this criminal and you go around stealing cars and all this other kinds of stuff. And, me going, hey man, I don't know if people are going to let you go around just shooting people and stealing cars and all that. I don't even think Sony's going to allow you to put that on the PlayStation. And then my boys out in Pennsylvania, but now in New York, Take Two, said, I think we're going to do it, right? And that's how Grand Theft Auto started, right?
It's pretty cool.
So like being at the point where, like, I mean, I straight up told Vince one time, he gave me this game concept, and he's like, oh yeah, man, when you're in a first person shooter, like most of the time you just read your mission and then you just kind of go out and do your mission. That's not how we're gonna do it. Like, people are gonna come up to you and talk to you and do all this other kinds of stuff. And I'm like, Vince, come on, man, come on.
Vince was a forward thinker. It sounds
Dude,
like,
let me
man,
tell you
that's
something.
crazy.
He went to 2015, and when they put out Medal of Honor, where you were on that U-boat and you look to your left and you look to your right, and it wasn't like a screen of people telling you what it was like to be, on the beach at Normandy. You straight up were there, right? And I still remember that feeling. I still remember that feeling going, damn, Vince, you won, man. You won, right? So every time I look at anything that Vince and his squad is doing, right, no matter how crazy I think the concept is, I'd be like,
make it happen. Make it happen.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I learned my lesson by doubting that dude.